I'm back. Welcome back to Hot Topics Live. I have to ask you a question. But first, let me try doing this live on Instagram. So let me see if this works. I think I am live on Instagram now too. So, yay, this is exciting. Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wished that you could talk to someone you loved that passed away? Have you ever felt like you got a sign from someone who you loved that had passed away? The reason why I'm asking you this is because two things. So I have a bonus niece, right? She is my former and sometimes guest co host, Gloria Landano's daughter, right? Shout out to Gloria, host of Unbreakable Life with Glory. Um, I love her so much. And her daughter is like my niece. And a few months ago, she lost her lover, her boyfriend, her fiance, and he was unwell and unfortunately died unexpectedly. And I know that she's been going through so much pain, but I know that he probably is communicating with her. And well, when my mother passed away, I got all the signs. And I just have always felt like death is a doorway, right? It's a transition. And when we lose someone we love, are they truly gone? I don't believe that. And if you don't believe that, then this is an episode for you. And if you do believe that, you should also keep watching because we just might change your mind. My guest today is extraordinary. He is an author, he is a founder of 222 Media Group, and he has written this book. And I'm not going to jump into all about the book yet because I want him to tell you about it. But it is in the description box, so you can read all about it there if you want to know more. But he has had this incredible experience with a girl named Laura, and she passed away many years ago, but he never knew her. That's the catch. He never knew her. So I'm going to bring him on so he can tell you how Laura impacts his life, how this came to be, and we can talk about his book because this is one you're going to want to read. Okay. So let me bring him on. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. And I'm so glad you're here because I have about a million questions for you. And I've been thinking of them for weeks, waiting for this day. So, Michael, first of all,
Mhm.
what, how did this come into your life? Like, did you just wake up one day and you were getting signs and synchronicities? I know it said you had dreams and signs, but how did, like, were you just one day not connect having any of this happen and then suddenly this was happening?
Yeah, it all came all unexpectedly. I, my sister was kind of more into that kind of stuff with people connecting with people that have passed on and stuff, and spirituality. And I used to make fun of her for it. But yeah, one day it just came about, blindsided me, and it took a while for me to really come to terms with what I was dealing with, because it was something that doesn't happen to many people every day. But then I've found out that yes, it's happened to more people than you think,
Mhm.
and I just share my story. So it I guess it brings more people out because they're afraid to share their story. So to start off, it completely happened accidentally. And one night I was in my house and doing some work on the computer, And this was 2014, and I had I guess I had YouTube open, and I was listening to songs, a bunch of 80 songs or whatever. That's what I grew up with. And the song by Christopher Cross, "Think of Laura," came on, but it wasn't the video. It was a tribute video to this girl. And I just happened to lift my head up, and I was like, okay, who's this girl? And I kept watching it, and I'm like, oh, please don't tell me this girl's dead. And she had died. And I don't know what it was, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, it's pretty sad because I felt like I was in stalker mode. It was like I needed to find out who this girl was, because I don't know why it bothered me so much. Because at first I'm thinking, maybe I just uh, felt bad for a girl that died, and then it was just going to pass and that would be it. But it didn't. It, and to get information, like I looked up her Facebook, and she didn't have a Facebook anymore, but some of her relatives did. And through there, I started seeing pictures, and I read what happened to her, and all these things started just like this information was flowing out. I knew everything about her. And again, I just dismissed it. Okay, I just feel bad for a girl that passed away. But weeks went by, months went by, and I'm just like, I don't know, something just keeps pushing me towards this, and I don't know what it is. And it's kind of, it kind of was overwhelming, to be honest with you. And then the dreams started happening, and I would have one dream a month. Then it was like 2 dreams a month, back to back nights. And so I started writing them down. I'm like, where is this leading? Why am I having so many dreams? And they were so vivid that I could, basically, I could tell you what fingernail polish she was wearing in my dreams. That's how vivid my dreams were. And I just started writing them in a journal. Now I've kept a journal for years, but I kind of played with it back and forth. I never really did much with it. But I figured, all right, if these dreams are happening, let me write them down and see where this is all leading. Why am I having these dreams? And it was almost like she was sending me messages through these dreams, but I was so confused, like, why? Like, who am I? Why is she coming to me? Why isn't she coming to family members? You know, um, I never knew her. I never knew uh, any of her family. There was no connection whatsoever, at least on this plane, about her. I was like, okay. So I was just constantly just writing down. Weird things start happening. Like I started seeing, that's why I named my company 222 Media. It seemed that I would see the numbers 222 and she would come to mind, or I would see them in my dream and she would appear, or I would see them in my dream with her, and then I wake up, it'd be 2:22 a.m. or 12:22. So for some reason, those numbers, which they call angel numbers, are significant with her. And then I was like trying to find out why that was happening. So it was a very confusing time for me, because I was all new to this. I wasn't one that believed in this kind of stuff. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know if maybe I went down a wrong road somewhere, and I was opening up some kind of Pandora's box. So it was scary at first. I'm not going to lie. It was something that I battled with, and sometimes I would just try to push it away because I didn't understand it. And for some reason, the more I pushed it away, the more she kept coming. She was persistent on it. So it was one of those things, and it was something to get used to. And even 10 years later, I still have dreams about her, not as many as I did, but at least I would say 5, 6 times a year, at least 5 times a year now for the last couple of years. I still have dreams about her. But for those 8 years between 2014 and 2022, I mean, it was pretty consistent with
Okay.
my.
So I need to like sort of try to wrap my head around it because
Yeah, I was trying to wrap my head around it too.
I feel you. I
Believe
feel you
me, I was.
because what comes to mind is like, I was a latchkey kid growing up, so TV has always been a big thing, and so I've always loved TV and movies and stuff. And what comes to mind immediately are things like The Ghost Whisperer, or
Mhm.
um, you know, um, what was that movie with Bruce Willis where the kid was like, I see dead people. Do you remember that movie?
Sixth
And like,
Sense.
yes, The Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And so I love Bruce Willis. So that's
I
what
actually
comes to
saw that
mind.
movie in the movie theater, and when that happened, and my sister and I went to go see that when it first came out, and I said,
Uh,
"He's dead." I knew he was dead. Even in the beginning of the movie, I knew he was dead for some reason. I'm like, he's
wow,
dead. She's like,
really?
"How do you know that?" I'm like, "He's dead." And sure enough, he was. Yeah, that was a great movie. I'm sorry. Go ahead with your
No,
story.
no, it's all good. It was a great movie. Love
Yeah.
Bruce Willis. God bless Bruce Willis wherever he is now. So like, so honestly, um, some things just like impact you, right?
Yes.
So as you were talking, I was thinking about like the show The Ghost Whisperer. If you're not familiar, Jennifer Love
Jennifer
Hewitt,
Love Hewitt.
would come, like people who were not being able to cross over
Yep.
would appear to her, and she would have to help them. And it was a great series. If you haven't seen it, it's great.
No,
But
I've caught it. Yeah.
so this is the kind of thing that comes to mind, but also some of my own experiences, right? Where, like I said in the opening of the show, I'm a really spiritual person. I definitely don't believe death is the end of us. um I don't shade anybody on what their beliefs are, but mine are mine, right? And I definitely have had experiences, right? So, for example, I have, when I said was talking about my friend Gloria's daughter, I am certain, and I don't know how I'm certain, but I am certain that her lover is trying to communicate with her through signs. Like, and I've
Hmm.
been having this feeling for a while, right? But it's weird. You don't just go around telling people that, because they'll just think you're crazy.
Nope.
Or
Nope.
or
You don't.
with my experience when my own mother passed away in 2018, and how I was able to heal our relationship. We didn't speak for 10 years before she died, and how I
Hmm.
was able to heal our relationship after she passed away. Right.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think a lot of it is all in what you are open to believe and what you're open to receive. So I had a spiritual guide a few years ago, Julian. He was on a ton of episodes of this podcast. They are on YouTube and Facebook. You just have to scroll through and find them. But he was brilliant. And he taught me a lot of stuff about this thing, because I had one experience, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. So I'm going to share it with you.
Okay.
I had one experience after I had a surgery, and unfortunately, they did not give me my pain meds. Like, they sent it to the wrong pharmacy, and they sent it to a pharmacy that was closed. So I couldn't get them, or they said something happened where I couldn't get my pain meds after surgery. And I was like, sort of leaking a fluid that they put into me during the surgery, but it was making my blood pressure drop. Um, and I was having like very dizzy spells and things like that. And I was in a lot of pain, we'll just say. I mean, it was in the middle of the night, around 3 o'clock in the morning. I ended up going to the emergency room, side note. But before that happened, right, I was in so much pain. I was laying in bed, and I started to hear something. And it sounded like someone was talking to me, right? And then but it was like in my head. And
Hmm.
so I was like, what is this? I thought it was God, to be honest with you. And I was like, God is talking to me. So I was like, I better answer, right? I think that's in the Bible, right? Samuel or someone. Anyway,
Hmm.
so I'm like, I'm answering. And then this person was telling me a story about a life that I am unaware of. And then, as another voice chimed in, and then another voice, and then another voice, and then another voice. And there were too many voices to the point where I thought that I was going crazy, right? I was going
Did
crazy.
you
And I
recognize
started,
any voices?
none of them. And I started freaking out. The first one was like, it was a friend of mine, a previous friend, but named Terry. That's as far as I got.
Okay.
And then the person kept telling me some other stuff, details. And I was really confused. I thought I was going crazy. I started freaking out. I called my husband, my ex-husband now, to come and take me to the emergency room. I went to the emergency room. It never happened again, right? But it was a weird occurrence, and I will stand by it. And I will, and I spoke to my spiritual guide about it, and what he said to me was that there are certain times of the day and also in our life when we are, because I was in such a vulnerable position where I was like, really in pain and unwell, that my barrier was low. I guess that's how he would say it. And that my resistance was low. So I was open, I guess,
Hmm.
like a channel. And
Okay.
so I was receiving messages. And he said that, so what I saw in my head at the time when this was happening was a doorway, like a closed door, and with a lot of people trying to come through the door. And
Okay.
what he said to me was that there were too many people. Like once they realized on the other side that I was open and receiving, that everybody tried to come at once to like get their messages out,
Sure.
right? And so I was astonished when he told me that, because I was like, no way. So I felt really like you. I'm like, no, I think I was delirious. There's a scientific explanation for what happened to me, I'm sure. But it was interesting to say the least. And I definitely did write it in my journal. So which brings me to my next question for you.
Okay.
Um, you started journaling about this. So you saw her and she caught your attention, which certainly stories have caught my attention on. There was a girl who got killed by her boyfriend while they were in a van a few years back. She's from the East Coast, I think.
Hmm.
And that story like really affected me, and I followed the whole story. So it wasn't like that for you. It was like you saw this girl, and there was just something that you became
Instant
obsessed.
connection. If I have to say, it's an instant connection. It's like I knew her somewhere before. Absolutely. But at
But you
that time,
didn't know her.
I didn't no, I didn't know her at all personally. But I felt it was almost like in your gut, if you believe in the chakras, and I'm not well versed on that. It was almost like in the gut, like I knew her from somewhere, or I knew something, but I didn't know what I knew. But it was familiar to me. But at the same time, it was the situation was so unfamiliar to me that I was maybe resisting it, or you know not believing, because it's like, again, does this is something that doesn't happen to me every day. It's just like stuff you see in the movies. It's like, okay, this doesn't happen to me,
Mhm.
and but it was okay. There was nothing bad about it. It was from a place of pure love, and it was just kind of playing detective, like, why is she coming to me? What is this all about? That was my biggest hurdle, was trying to figure that out. And to this day, there's some things I still don't understand, but I've accepted it. And a lot of my friends, at first I didn't tell anybody because I thought I was losing my mind.
Mhm.
I did tell my sister, because she was familiar with that kind of stuff. And to her it was like, oh yeah, it's a spirit from maybe a past life. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, it's that easy, right? It's just that's simple. Sure,
It
okay,
feels
I
past
believe
lifey.
you. What's that?
I said it feels past lifey. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it does have
And I
that
was just
energy.
like, yeah, if you say so, I'll go with it. And I actually told my dad too, because he was wondering what was bothering me. And now you have to realize, he was born in Italy, born on a farm in Italy, hardworking guy. And as he's gotten older, he's more in tune with things. But when we were kids, you could put the fear of God in you if you wanted to, if you did something bad. And so my father was very black and white then. It was yes or no. And he even understood, which I was a little taken back by. But his father, my grandfather, and I write this all in my book, um, was a very religious, spiritual man. They grew up on a farm, and my grandfather, trusted God that the crops would grow, and he would be able to feed his family. And then when they moved to America, my grandfather, that's why I used my middle name Bernardo when I write, because that is my grandfather. And he had a third grade education, and I figure I honor him that way by using my middle name to honor him. And he took that chance and brought his family to America, not knowing what's going on, didn't even know the language. Didn't know, my grandfather, I didn't really, when I was a kid, he died when I was 10 years old. I don't even think, it was like, hello, happy New Year, Merry Christmas. There wasn't much communication because I didn't really know Italian and he didn't really know English, but he knew how to express love. If we walked in the door, he would give you 100 kisses on each cheek, and I'd run for the hills because his beard was scratchy, but that's the way it was. But he was a man of God. I mean, he would sit there and read whatever. He went to church every Sunday. He'd read whatever missalette or Bible that was around, and he had a deep faith in God. So I guess that's my father, I guess, seeing that from his father, understood and was kind of like, okay, this is seriously bothering you. This isn't something just that, that's, oh, you just feel bad again for a girl that passed away. Something's going on here. And yeah, he was understanding. And then actually, I was a little afraid to tell some of my friends because, again, I didn't know how they would understand. But believe it or not, you almost attract this. You tell people that do understand. You don't think they will. They're like, oh, yeah, I believe in that. And I'm like, you do? Oh, yeah, that happens to me. It
Mhm.
does. It's more common than you think, but people just don't speak about it. And of course,
Right.
there's going to be naysayers and non-believers, and I get it. I understand. I was that person once too. But you have these things that happen to you. You start to kind of be like, okay, you got to believe something here. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely something. You know, it took a while to get. Yeah.
Wow. My gosh. So let's talk about, how you processed this because obviously you said that you were not a big believer in this kind of like spiritual woo-woo sort of thing, right? And then
Mhm.
it happened to you. So how did you begin to, process that mentally and emotionally?
It took a while, and I'll tell you one thing, and I write it in the book. What happened was, this is kind of what kind of told me that I need to see somebody of a higher. You said you have a spiritual person you go to, and my sister knew this medium, and to me, I don't know, mediums, they can be hit or miss, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was Laura's birthday that day, and I woke up and I get a buzz on my phone. Now at this point, I had gotten out of a relationship and I'm single now, so I was on a dating site, and it was one of the dating sites says you have a new match. Again, I thought it was like I have a regular business besides the Tutu Media Group I've had for 20 years. It's probably why you see this up here.
Ah.
It's a cleaning restoration business, so that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. So I thought it was like one of my employees, you know, calling off. And I'm like, oh, great. Who's calling off today? Get one of those texts at 6 a.m.
Mhm.
And I saw it. It says one of the dating sites that says you have a new match. I'm like, oh, okay. So I open up the dating site and it's a picture of Laura on the dating site.
Stop it.
I
Stop
swear
it
to
right
God.
now.
Swear to God. I swear to God, I jumped out of bed and I'm like, okay, like that was the point where I literally got out of bed and my heart started beating. Like, okay, is this like a poltergeist thing where
What?
people are going to start flying out of TVs? Like, I'm like, I don't know if I should just stop it now because that went way too far with that. And so I knew it wasn't a real account, and I'm like, it can't be a friend because nobody really knew about it at that time. They knew about Laura, but they never saw a picture of her. So how would they know? Um, so yeah, that freaked me out. And I wrote to it. I go, I know this is a spam account. Can you please take this picture down? I know this girl, she is deceased.
Oh,
So like a
wow.
minute or two later, I refreshed it and another picture of Laura shows up. And I'm like, okay, there's this something that's going on here. And then I refreshed it again and the whole file completely disappeared. And I told my sister, I called her that morning and she's like, why are you calling me this early? And I go, this just happened. Now, mind you, it's Laura's birthday. This was
Oh.
2015. This was 2015. And I told her, she's like, oh yeah, you have to go see my friend. He's a medium. And, uh, he's in Havertown, which I'm sure you're familiar with Havertown being from Philly.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And she's like, well, just think about it. I'm like, okay. So the whole day is like crazy. So I come home and I grab my phone out of my pocket and I'm going to put it on the arm of the couch. And when I pulled it out, that tribute video on YouTube was playing again. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, well, maybe I hit the button to the YouTube and it just started playing. Like, I'm trying to justify why this is happening. And I'm like, okay, this is getting out of hand. And I cleared all my apps. I put my phone on, the blank screen, and I went in to my bedroom and I was folding laundry. I came back out and the damn video is playing again. I was just like, oh, I'm like, okay. And then I called my sister again. I'm like, what is going on here? Because this is actually starting to really creep me out. Like, this is like,
Yeah.
do I need to go see somebody if this is like a bad spirit or something, like
I need to
something
sage my
going
house
on
too.
here that you see in movies? Like, and she's like, oh, just go to the medium. And I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, okay. So I made an appointment with him, and she had known him. My sister had known him for years. Very nice guy. And so I go in there, and he it was I tell this whole story in my book. I go in there, and he's got this big gong. Remember the Gong Show from back in the day?
Yeah.
He had one of those in his like entranceway of his living room, and it says, please hit 3 times. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me with this. So I did it, right? I'm like, all right, whatever. And he comes out, and I had never met him before. I had seen pictures of him, and very nice guy. And he tells me, oh, you had past lives together, and the reason she died because it was designed that way, and she's sending messages to you, and you had 3 past lives together, and one of them you were in Louisiana, and the other one you were in the British Isles, and I'm like, okay, I just don't know how well I'm going to take this and believe it. But it's weird because then you get to thinking, like, okay, apparently I was a gambler in Louisiana and I was on the riverboats. But what's funny is when I was a little kid, those riverboats with the paddles, big
I
paddles in the
love
back,
those.
they were my favorite. They were my favorite boat. And I'm not a big drinker anymore. And the British Isle thing, I love like rainy, chilly days. I mean, of course, I love sunny days, and I'm thinking, well, maybe but then it's one of those things. If people tell you something, you start to believe it. I'm like, I don't know. I
I
was like,
mean,
ugh. I'm
look,
like,
I like
I'm not. Hmm?
we just don't know, is my
You
point. Like,
don't, and it just made me more confused.
mhm.
And so that was 2015, and then obviously it kept going on, and then in 2017, my cousin, who is this motorcycle tough guy, shaved head, goatee, works with cars and stuff. He was at a party that had a medium there. And now he lost both his parents early. My aunt and my uncle, they both died younger. And we were at a party, or he was at the party, and the medium talked to him and was like, she knew both his parents were dead and all this other stuff. It freaked him out. So, a few weeks later, we were at a party together. He's like, Mike, you gotta check this. And she was in New Jersey. You gotta check this woman out. She's a medium, and she told me, and I'm like, you went to a medium? Nah, she was, it was at a party. And I'm like, okay, because I'm like, I wouldn't suspect you going to a medium. He's like, yeah, you gotta go. But she's like months in advance. So I called her, and it was January of 2017. So I went. It was and I went there, and very nice woman, and that was the first time, believe it or not, I saw somebody's aura. I didn't know I could see somebody's aura, but that day I saw hers. She's sitting on a chair, and she's telling me something. I'm kind of zoning out because it's like the same thing with everyone. And then all of a sudden, I literally see a gold band around her. And I'm like, when you're looking through somebody, not at them. And I'm like, oh, I think I see her aura. I've never seen one of those before, but I think I see one. And I told her, and I'm like, yeah, I think I see a gold band around you. And she's like, oh yeah, you can see. I know plenty of people that can see auras. My sister could see auras, but I never could. I was like, okay. And again, it's about like you said, you heard those voices. It's like opening yourself up to things, and more things come to you.
Mm-hmm.
So she tells me pretty much the same exact story that the other medium told me 2 years prior. Past lives, all this. And I'm like, well, what does she want? What is she here for? He's like, well, why don't you? And she didn't give me an answer. I'm like, okay, whatever. Why don't you write a letter to her? You write a letter down to her and ask her. I'm like, oh, because it's just that easy. And she's like, yeah. Okay, sure, I'll do it. And I'm like, okay. And she was a nice woman, and she got other things, about my family and people that had passed away that I could relate to. But again, with mediums, it's if 30% of what they say is correct, it's good. They're considered good. I guess it's all what you believe, but she was a very nice woman. And then I come home. Of course, my sister is the first person to call me. She's like, what'd the medium say? And I'm like, yeah, she told me the same thing the other guy said. And she wants me to write a letter and ask her why she keeps coming to me. And my sister's like, oh yeah, you write a letter and then you burn it and send it out to the universe. And I'm like, oh, is that what you do? Sure.
Common
right
knowledge.
on it. Perfect. I'm right on this. Yes, I'm going to be the first one to write a letter to somebody I don't even know and burn it. She's like, just treat it like free writing. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. She's like, just do it. And my sister kept hounding me to do it. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I don't even know what to write. I'm like, this is going to be like 2 sentences and that's it. So it was a freezing January night, 2017. And I just started free writing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to start writing whatever comes to me, comes to me. Here it's like 2 pages front and back. I don't know where the hell that came from. It just was everything I wanted to know. Yeah. I just started writing and then it just started flowing, because my sister's like, treat it like free writing. I'm like, okay. And I'm not, at this time, I'm no author, so I write this letter and I'm like, okay, I guess I burn it now. Okay. All right, sure. If you say so. So I had this old pot in my kitchen that I never used, a real small one. And I go outside of my deck and it was like 16, 15 degrees out that night. It was freezing. And I burn this letter and I leave it out on my deck and I figured I'll just let it cool down out there. And then I'll just throw it in the trash. And wait to see what happens. So I go and grab it, like 20 minutes later or whatever, and I go to dump, and I sifted through the ashes, made sure everything was cooled down. And I just was gonna pulled out my trash can and dumped it in, and all the white ash fell into the trash can, except for two unburned pieces of paper. And I'm like, oh, I thought everything burned. I picked up the one piece of paper, and it said love, one word on it. And I picked up the other paper, and it said Laura. I'm like, okay. I'm like, that did it. That I was like, well, if that ain't a sign, I don't know what is.
So
Yeah,
wait,
yeah.
is there
And I kept the two pieces of paper, and wait, I have them in my book. Go ahead, you can ask your question.
okay, while you find that, and also, can you hold the book up? Because I wanna show everybody,
Oh yeah, so this
Love
is the
Beyond the
book.
Veil,
It's called "The Girl I
The
Never Knew,
Girl I
Love
Never
Beyond the
Knew.
Veil," and that's actually her eyes.
And
And
literally hers.
yeah, those are hers.
Wow.
And those are the two. I know you can't see it, but I put it in the book, and I still have
Mhm.
these two pieces of paper. Those are the two pieces of paper that burned. They charred but didn't burn, and they have the two things on it. Yeah. So
I love the
that.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say I love the part of the title, Love Beyond the Veil. Like, that just I don't know, it speaks to me. And The Girl You Never
I
Knew.
I went through like 20 titles for this book because it was the first book I ever wrote, and I'm
Mhm.
just like nothing was resonating with me, and I'm like I don't know. And I'm like, all right, well, simplify it. It's a girl I never knew. Okay, but it needed a tagline to it, and it was like forever. And one day I'm just like, again, you clear your mind, and it just like love beyond the veil. I'm like, that's it. That's the title.
So, I do
Yeah,
have a question, okay?
sure.
So you said the words love and Laura.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember you were saying that you had a match on a dating site and it
Mm-hmm.
was Laura. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, and your book is also titled The Girl I Never Knew But Love Beyond the Veil.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a romantic like link? Like in your past lives, were you a couple?
Oh yeah, apparently from both mediums, yeah, we were married several times. Um, and again, the last lifetime, it wasn't like a good thing. I was a gambler and I was a drunk and I was gambling on those riverboats in Louisiana. And it's funny now because if you want to say this lifetime, I hardly drink and I don't gamble. I went to Atlantic City a few times. I just lose. I never win. So I'm like, forget this. This isn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's that's what I've been told. So I'm assuming that's what's going on here. But it's definitely the love I have for her is it definitely an unconditional love.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't say it's romantic because I guess I can't connect with that because I never knew her. I guess on a personal level, but it's almost like if you would how you would love a child, your own
Hmm.
child. It's just unconditional. It's known. It's you would do with it whatever you would do anything for that person. That's the kind of love because they're like, is it sexual? Is it romantic? And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with that.
How could it be
Um,
sexual?
I don't know. People have asked me that. Like I said,
Okay.
and it has it's nothing like that at all.
Mhm.
It's nothing like romantic or sensual or sexual or nothing. Um, it's just pure unconditional love. That's it. Just like the same way a mother would love their child.
Now, do you
Yeah.
think that, when you saw the clippings, "Love Laura," that maybe she was
Mhm.
communicating to you, like sending you
Well,
some love?
oh yeah, yeah. That's when I kind of it was like, okay, you got to start believing now because that just doesn't happen. Yeah, that was the kind of the turnaround point where you're just like, okay, you got to stop resisting this and you got to start believing it because if she hasn't thrown if she throws so many signs at you, maybe this one will stick. Like, how's that supposed to happen? Like, I can't make that up. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so that was really kind of the turning point where I kind of started to accept it, where it's like, okay, it is what it is. I guess this is like something that's really happening. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it was definitely an experience. And again, I'm thinking I'm the only one that experienced things like this. And I started a Facebook group with my book, and there are a lot of people that experience things like that with soulmates and twin flames, and they're very similar stories, even people they didn't even know. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not as, I don't feel so bad. Like I felt like I was an outsider. I was afraid to tell people because
I
I
can
didn't know what was
imagine.
going on. Yeah, because I
Mhm.
didn't know what was going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So because of this, you've put together an entire tribe of people who have had similar experiences?
Yeah, I started the Facebook group is, the girl beyond love, the girl I never knew, love beyond the veil. And yeah, I started with, just friends that, you know, towards the end, before I even wrote the book, a lot of people knew about her. And then some friends had no idea. And then all of a sudden they're like, you're writing a book. I'm like, surprise. Yeah. Who would have thunk it? Um, and then that's when there was one friend I went to high school with. I would have never thought in a million years she was like that. And she privately messaged me and she's like, hey, Tulli, she's like, I experienced the same thing you do. And I'm like, you? And she's like,
What?
yeah. She's like, I don't tell people. She's like, when I read your book, I'm like, this is exactly what things that happen to me with people that have passed. I mean, she knows a lot of people that she knows that have passed away, but she can get those signs too, and she can like communicate with the people that are on the other side. And I had no idea, never, because in high school she was like athlete, cheerleader, homecoming court, like you it just didn't fit the mold. And now, 30 years later, she's like, oh yeah, that happens to me too. I'm like, really? I would have never known. Yeah. But you don't have to be, it can happen to anybody. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my story, sticking to it.
Wow. Well, what a story that was.
Yeah. Oh,
I
there's
am
plenty more.
shooketh.
Yeah.
I am shooketh. So I guess if I were a person who was interested in and connecting with someone from the other side, or if I thought someone was connecting with me, uh, from your experience, what are some of the signs that a person might see?
Well, it all depends how open you are. Some people can see spirits. I've never seen a spirit. I'm more of I guess, an empath. I feel things. And I write this in my book. I've always been able to feel things. And I think that kind of started in college for me, where I would go into class and I knew how I did on a test, or I knew how I did on a paper. And then it started with I write a story about 9/11. I was working in baseball at the time with a minor league team of the Kansas City Royals. And it was in the Carolina League, and we were going to the championship series. And it was September, I think, 8th or 9th. And I didn't want to go. Had no idea. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know what. And I thought, well, maybe we're going to lose the championship series. And that's probably why I don't want to go, or something like that. I'm thinking that's got to be it. But there was something that was like, I just, when you get one of those, you get irked. You're like, there's something not, it's off.
Mhm.
And I knew something was off and I didn't know what it was. And I almost called the GM of the team and told him I wasn't going. I remember I was getting some stuff last minute. I stopped at a Kmart when Kmart's were open, and and got some stuff. And I was just almost ready to back out and be like, I'm not gonna go. But they paid for the hotel room and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe it's just all in my head. And sure enough, the day one, we did lose that championship series. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe that was it. And on the ride back from, we were in Roanoke, Virginia. On the ride back, and on the ride back, that's when it all broke loose. It was about 8:30 in the morning. We hear something go on over the radio. And next thing you know, the Pentagon gets hit, and we have to like go around Washington, D.C. We ended up going through West Virginia and back up through Maryland to get to Wilmington, Delaware. And I didn't know what was going to happen that day. I remember we stopped at a rest stop, and I'm like looking in the sky, and I'm like, are we getting attacked? Like, are we all going to, like, I didn't know what, but that was
Wow.
it. Like, I knew something was going to go down. I just didn't know what. But I've always, like I said, I always had those type of feelings. So to get back to your question, it's feelings, it's signs, and it's all different signs. My signs were I would see her initials, or I would see the numbers 222. That's how I would know it was her. But some people see birds, some people see butterflies. So you have to look for the signs. And there is a chapter in my book that talks about looking for the signs. And I think the more you're open to it, the more things happen. And I have a friend that I grew up with from grade school and high school, and her mom had passed away, and it bothered her because she knew about my story, and this is before my book even came out, because I would share things with her, and she would write, and she'd be like, Tulli, she's like, I'm. It bothered her because I was able to connect with a girl that I didn't know, and she wasn't able to connect with her mother, and it bothered her.
Yeah.
And because I think she lived, I don't know what happened. I think her mom just died unexpectedly, and she wasn't there, and that really got to her. It wasn't like she
I
couldn't be
can
there.
imagine.
It's just something that happened really fast, and she didn't have time to get there. And I said, I can guarantee you, if you just clear your mind and you look for different signs, something that relates to your mother, you'll start to see things. And she was getting frustrated, and she would tell me, I'm not seeing anything, I'm not seeing anything. And I felt so bad for her. I'm like, just it takes time, it just takes time. And then she emails me again. This is over a course of maybe 6 months, or Facebooks me, and something happened with her father, that I think he actually had a heart attack on the side of the
Oh,
road.
oh my
And
God.
he heard a voice, and it was his wife, my friend's mother, saying something about everything will be okay. And and then she Facebooked me, and she's like, that was my mom, I know that was my mom, she was looking over my dad. That was a sign. Then she got excited because now she felt like maybe she can connect with her mother. And I tell that story I actually asked her if I could put that story in the book. I talk about that. I touch on that because, not everybody's gonna, I guess it's how open you are to things. Um, it's either signs, symbols, numbers. Um, some people can see them, some people can feel them. So I would just say be open. And I think a journal is a great tool for that, because, things will happen and you would forget. And like a lot of my dreams, I wrote them down as soon as it happened. So when I've gone back over the 8 years at that point, I forgot a lot of stuff if I didn't write it down, because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this, I forgot about that. So I would keep a journal. Even you don't even need to write it down. You don't need to write in it every day. But if something you want to, start writing to people, or start writing letters, like the medium told me, it's a great tool to open yourself up to more things. And then if you get a little sign, just write it down. And the more open you get them, like you said, the more you will receive. And I can honestly say that's true. That happened to me. That's happened to a lot of people. But you have to be open to it, and you can't get frustrated. It'll come in their time. Um, but I would definitely recommend that. I would keep a journal, or write something, or a little notepad, and write things down. Write anything down that's happened to your loved one. If you even want to talk to them, write them a letter. And you don't even need to. You want to write them a letter, just tell them how much you love them. You don't even need to like I did, burn it out on my deck in 17-degree weather. You just write it and keep it in your book. That's all. and
Yeah.
it's a great tool, and it makes you feel better. There's something about putting your words, your feelings on paper, because I always said, and I've heard this too, the paper doesn't judge you. The paper doesn't discriminate you. It doesn't judge you. You can pour your feelings out on a piece of paper, and it doesn't talk back to you. And I think that's a great tool for healing, is writing. And that's why I've done it more and more over the years. So that would be my answer to your question.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, um, for me, my mom smokes cigarettes. She smoked Newports. I mean, that woman, and when I tell you she loved cigarettes, she
Mm.
loved her cigarettes. So
Yeah.
sometimes I don't smoke now. I haven't smoked
Mm.
since my Navy days, honey. But like, so sometimes I'll just be in my house and I'll smell Newports. No one smokes here. Oh, my
Yeah.
kid's dad smokes, but he's not here. So I'll smell, it's particular. He does not smoke menthol. It's particular. Newports. And it'll just waft past my nose. Right. And I'll be like, hey, mom. Like it because it just
Yeah.
is such a normal, natural thing for me. Or I will, one of the last interactions my mom and I had before she passed away was she joined Facebook and she sent me a friend request and I accepted it.
Mm.
So every now and again, her page will pop up on my Facebook thread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
People
out of
that you know.
nowhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I will see her picture and I'll just be like, "Hey mom, like I feel like she's looking in on me. She's communicating with me." Another thing you mentioned birds. Birds are a sign of a friend of mine that passed away. We had an experience with birds. Whenever I see blackbirds, I know she's with me. She's present.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, here's a funny story for you with regard to that. I was on New Year's Eve in downtown Portland going
Okay.
to this Great Gatsby party. So it was all 20s and we're all dressed up and we're at this fancy hotel. And I believe my friend Melanie, shout out to Mel's, and I were at the on the 12th floor. And we'd left the party was in like one of the conference halls and we went up to the room to like eat some pizza because why not, right? We're drinking and like celebrating. On our way back down, we stopped by the window. I wanted to do selfies, right? And then we went by the window to get the backdrop of the city and the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And there were all of these black birds swarming and swarming and swarming and swarming and swarming around. There were hundreds of birds flying. It was like a bird cyclone in a
Okay.
big circle around the city. And it was like I videotaped it actually. And I was just
Oh
like,
wow.
this is crazy. This is crazy. Like it was like that old movie, The Birds. And
Yeah.
this is another reference to her because we watched that together, right?
The
So
old Alfred Hitchcock
yeah,
movie.
the
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock. And so we're like, oh my God, this is so weird. This is so weird. And then when we went downstairs, and I didn't think of it because I usually, whenever I think of blackbirds, I think of her. But I went downstairs back into where everyone's dancing. The DJ starts spinning, and he spins this mix that has a song that we all used to love and dance to and sing together all the time when we're in the car or wherever we were. And my friend was like, Laura Wilson is with us. That's exactly what she said to me. And I teared. I teared up right there. And I got really like overwhelmed with emotion in that
Mm-hmm.
moment because it felt everything in my body like that was the case. Like she was there, like she was bringing in 2024 with us. Um, and it was just amazing. It was just, she and I hadn't spoken in years before she passed away unexpectedly, and she was an old friend, right, but one I really loved, and our
Mm-hmm.
lives just took us in different directions, and I always just figured we'd circle back around at some point in life, and it never happened. She died unexpectedly first. And so just to think that you can repair these relationships, you can, it's not the end. It doesn't have to be the end if you're open to receive. And I love that that's part of your message. And I love that you wrote this book to share this with the world. And I can't thank you enough for being on Hot Topics Live podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And you mentioned something about time, and I write this real quick. I write this in my book about time. It's something you don't get back. So people that I remember, I had a buddy, and this is based on my next book. A buddy of mine that I grew up with. He died when he was 30 years old of cancer, and some of the brothers didn't really get along towards the end. And he almost was like, "Hey, we got to be a family." Because somebody had some arguments or something. Because he's like, I don't know how much longer I'll be here. And time is so important because we think we have an abundance of it. Oh, I'll do that next year. I'll do it this summer.
Mhm.
You don't know if nothing's guaranteed. I mean, we lived our lives so far, and I think, hey, I could possibly live another 40 years, but that's not guaranteed. you know.
Right.
So don't put things off till tomorrow because you don't know what will happen. You know, time is so precious. Time is definitely a gift God has given us, and we should treasure that because we don't know.
Mhm.
And we don't. It's not like you can go to the gas station and fill. Oh, I need more time. Let me fill it up. Once
Right.
it's passed, it's passed. Once you've lived it, you've lived it. It's gone. And
Yeah.
and like you said, you thought you and your friends would circle back around, and it never happened. So
It's
that's why
true.
anybody listening, if they have friends, if they have beef with any friends or family members, and don't play, oh, I'm going to be the tough one. I'm not going to, say anything until they say something to me. And I mean, that's all BS games, man. Like you show strength by being the bigger person and apologizing and say, hey, I know things aren't well with us. I want to apologize or I want to make amends. And whether, if they want to or not, that's on them. But at least you can have that clear conscience because that person's pretty important to you, even though you might not talk to them or you might have an argument with them because you don't know. You don't know, one day you could pass away, they could pass away, and then you never had a chance to say goodbye. So time is definitely
Yeah.
important.
That has been my experience on more than one occasion. So I'm going to go what he said. Like
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yep. Yep.
I'm living proof. You won't like how it feels if you don't
Mhm.
take that advice.
Yeah.
So before we wrap it up, because we're about at that time, I wondered if you'd
Okay.
read a little passage from your book for all of us, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure. And I'm going to read one of my dreams. I thought it was a good one. So I at the point I wrote the book, I experienced, I think, 30 some odd dreams. I didn't write them all in the book, but more the prominent ones. And instead of saying in the book dream number 7 or dream number 34,
Yeah.
I gave them names to relate to. So this one was dream number 7, and I named it the flickering light. And this happened on September 4th, 2015. And I don't have the right glasses, so I apologize if I can't see the writing on my book. So it says, this was the first dream where I actually heard her voice and received some kind of confirmation that she knew who I was. The reason because even I was having these dreams, I didn't believe that I was always afraid to go up to her in dreams because I didn't think she knew who I was. Um, so the dream starts in an old parking lot where my business was located at the time. I see a lot filled with hundreds of people standing around. And I had a lot of dreams where I see her with thousands of people. And I'm assuming these are all souls. And there's several dreams like that where I can pick her out of a crowd of thousands. And it was the same with this one. One of the parking lot lights from the business next door is flickering on and off. It was a muggy summer night, and you can still feel the heat from the blacktop on your feet. As I approach the crowd, I see Laura and her friends standing in a circle. For some reason, Laura stands out. She is vibrant, clear, while the others are just faces out of focus. I wanted to go up to her and talk to her, but I was nervous. I felt like a sixth grader trying to rustle up enough courage to talk to a girl I liked. I approached her and her friends and asked her for the directions to the Pepsi distributor that was nearby. I guess I had a lot of game if I was in sixth grade trying to ask a girl out. Hey, you know where the Pepsi plant is? Even though this wasn't where am I? Even though this wasn't one of my better pickup lines, it seemed to work for the dream. I stand there for a minute, knowing how I stand there for a minute, wondering how they were going to respond to the question. Laura's friends look at me and begin to laugh. Then I think, okay, this is awkward. I say under my breath. Suddenly, I feel someone putting their arm around me, placing a hand on placing a hand to my ear and whispering, "Guess who?" I take a step back as I feel a hand brush down my arm. I look and I see Laura standing and smiling at me. Her smile gives me immediate comfort and reassures that she knows who I am. Excited to be in her presence, my heart starts racing and butterflies are flying around in my stomach. But at the same time, I felt totally intimidated by her. She was on a different spiritual level than me. Part of me feels like I don't deserve to be standing in front of her. It seems as though she realizes this and telepathically makes a smart ass comment to chill me out. And I've talked to Laura's family, and they say she was kind of a smart ass and she was a jokester. So I kind of, that's how I can relate to that. She tells me she has to get back home and started walking with her friends across the highway. I quickly yell out, "You guys are crazy. You're going to get hit by a car," because this was like a major highway. Amazingly, all the cars disappeared as soon as they stepped onto the roadway. She gets into the middle of the road and turns to me and asks, "Are you coming?" I stand at the edge of the parking lot and try to cross the road, but something will not let me. I freeze in my tracks, and there is an imaginary felt like there was an imaginary wall in front of me. I yell out to her, "I can't. I don't have a pass." Then I think to myself, what the hell do I need a pass for? I tried moving forward again, but I'm not going anywhere. With that, she turns back around and keeps walking forward. Before reaching the other side of the street, she looks back at me, smiles, and fades away. As the dream ends, I can see now where she stood is the reflection of a slowly dying, flickering parking lot light. To this day, I still see that light. It no longer flickers, but it is a consistent reminder of the dream when I heard Laura's voice for the first time. So that flickering light was actually a real thing. It was where my old shop is, for my main business. It was a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, and there was this light, and it just, I guess the bulb, for years it did it. It would just flicker on and off. It was like a halogen light. And it would just go on, go off, go on, go. And for some reason, I had that dream with that light in it, and in the parking lot. And that was the first time I heard her voice. It was telepathically, and a lot of the conversation turn I have throughout the book are telepathically. It's like it's just a knowing, and I
Wow.
didn't realize that's how usually people that have passed away, they'll communicate telepathically. So yeah, so that was one of the dreams, and that I wrote, and there are other ones that are pretty in depth as well. But
Well,
yeah, just to give you an idea of what kind of dreams they are.
awesome. I thank you so much for sharing that. It has been incredible chatting with you about this and learning about your experience with Alora and learning about her. And I wish I could had time to ask you more questions and dig deeper into who she was, but
Hmm.
maybe for another day.
Sure, no
I
problem.
appreciate you so much for being a guest. I want to thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here. And before you go, before I put you in the green room, will you tell us where we can find your book?
You can find it on Amazon. It's a 5-star book. The Girl I Never Knew, Love Beyond the Veil. You can also go on my website, michaelbernardotulli.com. And you can go on Instagram, Facebook. I mean, you can just Google The Girl I Never Knew, Love Beyond the Veil, and it'll take you to all those different sites.
Thank you so much for
All
being a
right, you're
guest
welcome.
today. I'm going to
Thank you.
wrap it up. I'll put you in the green room. If you have time to stay, I'll see you in a minute.
Okay,
Otherwise,
no
I'll
problem.
reach out soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye for now. Okay, so that was awesome. I feel a little bit bad for the people who are watching on Instagram because apparently Instagram stops the live at 1 hour. So sorry about that. Anyway, so I just want to say that that was incredible. And for people who are suffering because they miss someone that they love, I hope this gave you some hope that you can connect with them, how to do it, and to just be open to receiving them connecting with you. So I hope you learned a lot from this. I think it was really incredible. And because you stayed with me this long, you know what we do at the end of the show. Now it's time for me to be a channel for you to receive a message. Are you ready? Take a deep breath and don't get weird about it. Don't make it weird. This is just, it can be from anybody. It can be from a dearly departed loved one. It can be from God, Allah, whatever you believe in. I hold no judgment. I have no, you know, issue with anything you choose to believe. Okay. Another important topic that we discussed while I'm doing this is not wasting time. Did you get that message today? And mending fences where you can, because it's funny. He said, my mom showed up. My mom, I will say, my mom came to mind when he was speaking, when he was talking about time, ironically, because I was talking about my mom a lot today, which could also be taken as a sign. And she used to always say, tomorrow is not guaranteed. She would always say that. She said she had lots of sayings. My grandfather did as well, and her father. And they had all these amazing sayings. And when someone reminds me of one, it's always really moving for me. So these cards are Soul Truth Awareness cards by Brianne Hovey. Okay. I'll show you the box in case you love them. There you go. Can you see that? All right. And so, what I'm going to do, if you're new here and you've made it this far for the first time and you've never seen me do this before, I'm going to shuffle these cards up, right? I'm going to connect to, I don't know, the energy. And I am going to let one fly out at random. And that random message is for you. Okay. It's my way of saying thank you for supporting Hot Topics Live podcast. I know there's a lot of new people, a lot of new subscribers. I want to thank you for that. Okay. When I'm done with this, I want to show you a couple of my pinup magazines. If you're into that kind of thing, remember they're tasteful. They're tasteful. But in the description box, you'll find information about my pinup. You'll find information about who I'm affiliated with because I affiliate with and StreamYard. If you want to do live podcasts like I do, it's an easy way to get started. I think everybody should have a podcast, honey. All right, get your message out there. And if you have a business and you don't have a podcast, what are you doing? Are you even current? So anyway, if you want help to get started, you can just hit me up. Send Hot Topics Live a Facebook message probably, or hit me up on Instagram, Hot Topics Live, Hot Topics, the podcast on Instagram. Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm going to tell you before I grab the card. So in case you want to hit me up, this is what you're going to need to do. Go there. I just went live there for the first time in a really long time. So that's part of this episode. So I'll be going live on Instagram more as well. So that's the information you'll want to have, right? And so let's see what comes out for. Oh, there it is. Okay, you got one today. Sometimes there's more. Oh, does my life have room for more pleasure and play? Okay. In what area are you lacking pleasure right now? Maybe in certain relationships or with work? Is it possible to shift the seriousness of life to experiencing a more creative, wild, and playful side of you? Today's soul action. So, this is what you do. What would happen if you added more play and laughter into your life? What area is lacking this right now? Take time to play, Let go of any need to produce anything. Honey, I think you need a play day. Okay. You're not too old for a play day. Give yourself some time. You can find it, even if it's an hour, to do nothing or to do something you really love doing or something you haven't done in a while. I'm going to go ice skating. That's what I'm going to do. I haven't done that in a million years. I don't even know if I know how anymore, but I'm going ice skating. So join me in doing something just for you. It is self care after all. I want to thank you for tuning into Hot Topics Live podcast, for supporting the podcast. I promise I will upload audio episodes soon. I just hired a new assistant, so wish me luck. This is number 4. Maybe I'll get this thing organized and growing. But for all of you who are tuning in, I really appreciate you. I love you guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks with a new episode. Bye for now.